Stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll begin with a moment of silence. And as we do, if we could keep in mind the Otina family. Marshall Otina, the husband of Kathy Otina, passed away just recently. Kathy, as you know, has been on the finance committee and done a ton of work over the last couple of years. The spirit of the finance committee has been markedly changed and improved with the work that she has done. This meeting is being recorded and televised by WHCA. I'd like the motion to approve bill and payroll warrants.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like a motion to accept correspondence in the read file.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Public forum, now is time for anyone to speak on an item that is not on the agenda. Look out at the people here, and it feels like old home week. I don't know whether I'm going to a Whitman Counseling Center meeting or playing basketball at the whole school or 4 o'clock mass. I'm not sure where I am right now. Approval of meeting minutes, open session, October 7th, 2028.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Open session, October 28th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
My report, I really have nothing to report. Although we are going to probably at some point have on the agenda a discussion to talk about having a discussion about public forum or public comment. Mary Beth, you've done some studying on this recently.
Yes, and so we are going to, I've reached out to council and they're going to give us a template and some guidance, but I think that we need to just maybe formalize our public comment policy. So we'll see what comes through with Peter.
Right. What our practice has been is that at the beginning of a meeting, we announce that anyone who wants to speak on something that's not on the agenda to speak. We don't deliberate on it. It doesn't cause any discussion, and that's it. And then it's been our practice during meetings, if people want to enter the discussion, we would allow them to enter the discussion. But recently, there's been a lot of discussion statewide about the open meeting law and allowing people who are not citizens of the town or citizens of the town where the meetings are taking place to also participate. And sometimes people cannot participate if they have disabilities. They may not be able to attend a meeting. And there's been a lot of discussion about how we allow people like that to attend the meeting or participate, either through Zoom or through phone calls or whatever. And we probably need to, we do need to formalize how we want to deal with that. So in the future, we'll firm that up by having a discussion. New business. Act on the request of the Whitman Recreation Commission for permission to use the Town Hall Auditorium on Saturday, March 28th, 2026, from 8 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. in order to hold a spring egg hunt. Is there a motion?
Oh, yes. That's great, yeah.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Act on the resignation of Thomas Pistorino as member Capital Committee effective January 9th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Act on the resignation of Thomas Pistorino as member of Whitman Cultural Council effective January 9th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Act on the following request for toll booth fundraisers submitted by the following. Whitman Little League, March 28th, 2026, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., rain date 4/11/26. American Legion, May 2nd, 2026, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., rain date 5/30/26. Knights of Columbus, October 10th, 2026, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Whitman Area Toy Drive, September 12th, 2026, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor of those dates? Next item on the agenda is the Bedford Street parcel ID 25D 335, right of first refusal. Mary Beth?
Yes. So we have been notified about our right of first refusal. It's a parcel up on Bedford Street, right across the street from Hornster Farm, 0 Bedford Street. It's map block and lot 25335. And this is a 26.66 acre parcel that has been receiving real estate tax relief under Chapter 61A for decades for its agricultural use classification, the production of hay and grain. The multifamily owners have put it on the market, and there is a purchase and sales agreement to sell this parcel for $1,500,000. The new owners intend to develop a light industrial park at that location. In exchange for receiving the property tax benefits, the municipality has a right of first refusal when a change of use is planned by a new owner after a sale. The municipality, however, must match a bona fide offer that the owners have received. That would be the $1.5 million. The option must be exercised within 120 days of compliance with the specified notice requirements. The landowner must pay the greater of either a rollback or conveyance tax when the use of classified land is changed to a non-qualifying use. This is a provision to recapture some of the tax benefits provided to the landowner while under the agricultural classification. By not exercising the right of first refusal, the town will allow the probable development of this land, which will in turn create growth in the tax base. So it is $1.5 million. Just given our financial situation, it would be my recommendation, to take a vote not to, show interest and purchase this land at this time.
Discussion? Yeah.
Okay,
Dan, then Justin.
which one?
You can go.
All right, seniors first?
Yeah.
Yeah, as an industrial, the only thing I see in that is the fact that it's going to add truck use of Route 18. If it's industrial.
Light industrial use.
Right, light trucking, box trucks, maybe trailer trucks, tractor trailer, but I don't think it would add that much that Route 18 couldn't handle.
No.
But I just want people to understand that that I would agree that we should, have first refusal and refuse it. There's no sense. What are we going to use it for? You know what I mean? But if there's an industrial park there, it could increase the traffic. Just want to let everybody know that.
It could, and by having that too, with growth and revenue coming in, it would
help us, yeah.
Rolls, and it would
Yeah.
help the town as well.
Yep, I agree.
And
Justin?
I was just going to say that the Economic Development Committee had not looked at that in particular, but we briefly discussed Route 18 as probably our most immediate opportunity for economic development with what East Bridgewater's got going on with their expanded sewer system. So I think an opportunity to catch some spillover economic development from what they're building with industrial and commercial properties right on the town line might do well for us. So this could start maybe additional development up in that direction.
Yeah.
So you favor refusing also?
I favor refusing the right of first
Would
refusal.
someone like to make a motion that we
Do not
exercise the right of first refusal and refuse?
I'll make that motion.
So, yep. Motion that we do not exercise our right of first refusal to, intervene in the purchase.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Anyone else? All those in favor of that? Thank you. Yep. open annual town meeting warrant and set closing date? Mary Beth?
Yes, so I'd like to open the annual town meeting warrant this evening and set a closing date of February 17th. Most of the articles are in, and that will still give about 3 weeks for anybody that wants to submit an article.
February 17th?
February 17th, correct.
Is there a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Discussion?
Makes sense.
All those in favor? Okey-doke. MVP grant opportunity, Hornstra.
Yes, so this has to do with Hornstra Farms Whitman Protection Project. John Hornstra of Hornstra Farms, in conjunction with Wildlands Trust, would like the Select Board to consider purchasing a permanent conservation restriction on most of Hornstra Farms, with the exception of approximately 5 acres, inclusive of the farm store, the ice cream stand, the barns, and residential building. Funding would be through a state grant under the Commonwealth's Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, referred to as MVP. Wildlands Trust will co-hold the conservation restriction with the town. Its function to be annual conservation restriction monitoring. The value of the proposed conservation restriction will be determined by an independent appraisal. The state's MVP program, if awarded, would provide 90% of the funding needed, while the remaining 10% could be funded by the town's Community Preservation Act fund. The application is expected to open in the immediate future with an anticipated submission deadline of mid to late March. An approximate timeline would be to apply by the deadline in mid to late March. Awardees would be notified in early fall. The drafting of the conservation restriction and town meeting approval, either at a special town meeting in fall of 2026 or at the annual town meeting in May of 2027. The project must be completed by June 30th, 2027. Definition of conservation restriction is a permanent, legally binding agreement that protects a property's conservation values by limiting future uses, often prohibiting development, while allowing the owner to retain title and use the land for specific compatible activities, offering tax benefits and ensuring land protection for future generations. An expression of interest was submitted to the state in the fall under this MVP program. The town received positive feedback as this project very closely aligns with the state's intended use for the grant. And as you may remember, when Hornstra came in, we talked about this at the very beginning, that it would be, wonderful if that stayed the way it is, and down the road there wasn't big developments there. My concern today, and we reached out to Wildlands Trust, was when the conservation restriction is put on by Wildlands Trust, is there any annual fee if we put this restriction on that the town is liable for? And we were told no, and that oftentimes they even try to roll the initial costs into the grant. But if not, even if we move forward with this stage one, just to get everything filed, we don't have to go through with it if, say, the community preservation said no, they're not willing to fund the 10%.
Okay.
So,
That makes sense. 10% roughly. How much are we talking?
roughly, did we say?
I don't know, I think the grant application is gonna go in at around 2 million,
Yeah.
200.
Yeah, 200,
2.5. So 10% of that.
200,000.
And I believe this type of grant caps at 3 million. So we're looking at the $200,000 to $300,000 from CPC.
I'm okay with moving forward with like the
Initial.
initial, but $250,000 potentially is a good amount of money. I mean, I'd like to get feedback from community preservation and that kind of thing, but
Absolutely, and I've said the same thing, so they will, consider all this, but this first step, we can still take and not commit if community preservation does not want to move forward.
I have a couple of questions. The land that we're talking about is the land that's across the street from the ice cream stand?
No,
It's beside it, because what they have along the same side of the street behind them, they're using it to grow corn for feed. That's the land, they own it now. Why do they want to change it? They don't want to grow corn anymore?
Well, by changing it, that gives benefits to them and to the town.
What
So
benefit to the town?
So it wouldn't be sold in the future and a bunch of condos or, something going in there that the town may not want to change the landscape or,
Yeah, so if I can explain, Mary Beth, so we'd be purchasing a deed restriction on the property. So this would be the town basically paying the property owner now so that it couldn't be sold for more money in the future. So that now it would have to be conservation land or farmland if it were sold, and it would be a much less valuable property in the market than when it was up for sale last time. We had housing developers, solar developers, all at that auction, and we were grateful that John Hornstra had the winning bid.
So the only benefit to the town, none of it's financial.
No, it's protecting this land. Yeah.
I think it's pretty nostalgic, though, and we don't really have, well, I don't really remember very much of what we have anymore, so I'd like to keep it. And I know that Mr. Hornstra and his family went out on a limb, even got a little carried away and paid more than they wanted because they wanted to invest in our town. And I think that since we're out of Paradise Gardens and King's Castle land, it's a nice draw. People love it. They do good service. They employ people. And they did a really good job at remedying the soil.
Will they continue to be able to use it for agricultural? Grow corn on it, the land?
Yeah, that's the kind of point to keep it that way.
So they'll get the financial benefits of something that we own.
Taxes more so.
So we would
Well,
know.
but if it's agricultural, it's very low tax rate.
we wouldn't own it. He still owns it. It's just a restriction on there that it stays in the type of land that it is right now, in the future, in perpetuity, forever. Yeah.
And I think it would be behooving to everybody to remember how much a farmer works and what is involved in running that business, because it's immense. I grew up on a cow farm, so I could tell you, and I really, my heart and my hat goes off to them. It's a lot of work, and it does good for the town.
If in the future he decides not to grow, if we don't do anything and he owns it, he does what he wants with it, but we're taxing him as agricultural land. If in the future and he decides, well, I don't want to grow corn anymore or whatever, I'm just going to sell the land. Do we have to deem it not agricultural anymore?
It would come out of the classification that it's in now.
But I mean, can we say no, it has to stay agricultural?
No,
Oh, without the conservation
without the
restriction?
conservation.
No.
It would be the same process we went through, whatever,
Exactly.
10 minutes ago,
Right.
where we get the right of first refusal
Right.
if a buyer comes to do something other than agriculture.
But I'm just saying, like Sean was saying, it's going to cost us to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the only benefit we have is that nobody will build anything on it. And,
Stay as agricultural.
and we'll still get the tax rate of agricultural. I don't see why we have to pay for it, but whatever. Okay.
Okay, someone like to make a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second that
And the motion is what?
to support the.
To support going for the restrictions.
Yeah, go for the grant.
Supporting local farmers
All
and some land in Whitman.
Yeah, all those in favor? Thank you.
Okay.
Call for a civil service list. Chief Allen.
Good evening, Select Board. We are back in a position where we're going to need some officers soon. One's going to be retiring in February, around the middle of February, and then another one at the first of the year. So the request is to call for a civil service list for two. At such time something changes within that, we can always amend it, but start the process of acquiring the list, going through the civil service, the hiring process, the background checks, and everything else that goes along with that before we make any offers, conditional offer of employment to any of them.
Okay, someone like to make a motion?
I will make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Chief. Animal Control Officer, Mary Beth.
Yes. So Laura has expressed an interest to speak this evening as the ACO officer, so I just asked that she step down, take her select member hat off and put on her ACO hat.
And just in time for Joe to text me, even though y'all didn't hear it, to say that he won't be here, sadly. He's at a selectman meeting, which he's participating in Abington, and they haven't heard him yet. So forgive me. Laura Howe, Whitman Animal Control, not select person right now. I'll start this off by saying that Joe had said, since he knew that this might happen very last minute due to the storm, that we could postpone it. But I find really no need. What I would say is that maybe if you wanted to expand on it, we could add it to a future date. I've been talking about what I'm going to talk about briefly for 8.5 years, so I could do it blindfolded and, by myself easily. Although maybe I could do your AI, Justin, it would be probably much quicker. But when I started 8.5 years ago, I was extremely proud, and with the challenges that every department has had since I started, and with the challenges that every single town is having, every state, the whole world at this point, I'm actually really extremely proud of the service that Joe and I have given. And that's why I really wanted to be heard, because it's been extremely challenging. Like, I think it was Josh Patrick that said on 02382 a few months back, he said, this was on the TV all the time about the school and everything, is that many of the departments have taken it upon themselves to work harder, to work bolder, to do things, to help while other departments were getting fixed. Joe and I have been blessed by the grace of God, thank you, Jesus, that we have more abilities than most. Not just our own abilities, but I mean resources. So what you don't see, well, some people see it, is everything Joe and I do by ourselves. But I've come to a crossroad. I don't know whose paper this is, so forgive me. I've come to a crossroad where, not just because I'm almost 60, but because most of my resources have just retired. So it's in the future going forward, and it's why it needs to be addressed now. You could not run animal control the way that you've been running it, fortunately, because I'm very proud of that, for 8.5 years. There's many reasons, and I'll touch upon them with some of the questions that's been asked on social media, which was or in selectman meeting by Mrs. Fox or Miss Fox, who was so kind to ask some questions. But many people have been saying, we get caught up a lot in cats. I love cats. I have two. One is a rescue from Hanson, as a matter of fact. Love them. But we're a no cat policy town. So my hands are tied. But sadly, on social media, sometimes I look like the bad guy, and that's kind of sad. But we can't do anything. In the future, maybe we could, but we can't unless we expand on what's going on now. The Board of Health, we love the Board of Health. They're great. Dan is amazing, always responds to me almost instantly. But we're not connected. So he does the quarantines. Many people don't know, even 2 police officers this past couple of weeks misunderstood and reached out to me or, something of that nature, which is no problem. But remember how busy the police are. So they don't want to be on dispatch calling Laura Howe when they need to call Dan Kelly. I don't really know how else to get this forward to the public. We've tried over 8.5 years. I've gone through Frank Lyman. I've gone through Alexis Andrews. I've gone through Mr. Lincoln Heineman. I've gone through Mary Beth Carter. I think in between there might have even been Frank again. So I don't think pictures are necessary at this point. I had nice ASPCA from New York came down on the direction of Alan Borgel, who has since retired. But the good thing is he reached out to us maybe a week ago or so and said that he thinks he could still do a couple of grants, get a couple of grants done. That's what happens when you're in Animal Rescue League for forever. He's an amazing soul. And I really want the town to understand that when people start, and they have the right to, I don't sit up here for anybody except for the people, not even myself. It's kind of irrelevant. And when the people are asking about money being brought into departments, well, they deserve an explanation because it ain't our department bringing in money. And that is for a fact because I don't have a stable shelter that has the requirements needed to hold an animal. And I'm not going to put myself or my partner, Joe Kenny, who do not fall under the same guidelines as police, and people can sue us directly as well as the town, to have any animal hurt. And it's not because of any one person. It's not because of anyone's fault. It's because the shelter is old as Moses, and it's a metal building that you cannot keep the rodents out of. We live in the middle of a field and woods. It's just the way it is. I have had incidences where we cannot put animals in the shelter. That puts us in a serious boat. I was very happy that one of my friends that owns JM Pet Resort was able to take a police case a few years ago, which would have cost this town $10,000. But they did it because they were friends of Alan Borgel and then myself for $5,000. What if that happened again tomorrow? We don't have money. And that's why I have extremely willingly, nobody tied my hands to the animal shelter. I'm up there because I love this town. I love the animals. But at some point, we need to get on a page. I've been told I cannot do grants. I've been told I cannot fundraise. I cannot have a yard sale. I do not understand that, and that is for the legal counsel, which has been the one telling Mary Beth I cannot. But I come from a day where we all, well, my grandfather, went through the Depression, and everybody helped each other. So I always lived that way. And I see an awful lot could be done with grants. You remember, I've been fighting for a 3-town deal, not because I really wanted to have this 8.5-year-long fight, but because I don't want our residents paying a gosh darn penny more for what we work. But when the residents are thinking, well, we pay your salary, and they don't understand, and they get very mad. I go out into the field and I'm dealing with rabid raccoons and, animals that have to be shot, or not by me, thank God, but that have to be, killed on scene, deer, so we can be specific, to end its suffering, the poor things. People are like, my gosh, you're full time. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not. But Joe and I are 365 days a year, 24/7. And I probably have missed a few calls here or there, and so has he. But for the majority of it, I bet you that we have made 98% of those calls. And I would like to see Joe. He's a lot younger than me. He's my son's age, for crying out loud. And I won't always be here. And for me to walk away from the town animal shelter, getting its due diligence, having a department that runs properly and everybody intermingled properly, and a proper place to house animals that's safe for people and animals, doesn't have an inadequate filtration system, doesn't have kennels. When you go down to a kennel that's at this length, I don't know how, by the grace of God and Jesus, neither one of us have been hurt, because animal control officers get killed and maimed all the time. And we need to think of future safety. I think I've just been very lucky. I've been extremely lucky. But what about the next animal control officer? I really would like to state that every single minute that I have fought for this department, I have put every other department ahead. And I did that because I knew I had the resources, I had the time, I had the energy, I had the partner that would work with me, all of this. There's lots of people that don't want me to say that I'm not going to be animal control in the future. And I already have stated about selectmen, but I can't say how long I'll be animal control. And I know for sure that in 2 years, when my daughter graduates, I will be selling my home and I will be going somewhere peaceful. And I would really enjoy the heartfelt pride to know that somebody took an understanding in that Joe and I are not dog catchers. We're not dog chasers. Just ask Mr. Clancy, or Chief Clancy, excuse me, that helped the other day keeping 2 dogs off the street, or roadkill people. We're not that. We're everything under the book that falls under everything imaginable, including having SWAT. And I never signed up for this, but this is what happened to me. I have SWAT team kicking a door, and this is in Abington, so if everybody in Whitman's going, what? And I'm the first one to go in with guns drawn to get a pit bull out of there. Well, I don't know too much else that's pretty scary. Well, yes, I do. Maybe the whole neighborhood that had guns at Joe and I's head for 2 hours while we tried to get that raccoon out of Joyce Terrace. But we are in a lot of dangerous situations. You're building the community. You're trying to get more of a tax base. I understand it. Kyle used a very perfect word once. It's progress. I may not be all for it, but it is what it is. I can't stop a ball rolling down a hill. But there's going to be more people, more animals. And if you think that people care about anything in this world, it's animals. And when you go to, that's why compliance is key all the time. Because when you go to a person's house, they will kill you over an animal. And very sadly, sometimes they lose an animal. And imagine if you weren't a compassionate person. So you really need to have a lot of special qualities. Not that I'm a special person, but you have to have a person with a lot of different perspectives, that holds a lot of different hats, and who cares not about some stupid badge, but cares about the human and animal and environmental factor in all of that. I won't bore you with anything else. Joe may want to bring this back to the table. I know that we have to, when we ask things, you have to do it in a certain way. But what I'm saying is I don't want anybody looking up my records ever and saying Laura Howe failed at what she did, because that is far from the truth. And I am extremely, immensely grateful to my partner, Joe Kenny, and the abilities that God has provided both of us to keep the animals in the town safe with such restrictions. So if in the future you guys could, because I can't vote or talk about any of it, and I'm just at a point where, because of the outreach of the community, I really wanted people to understand. And since we all, since most everyone likes money, I realize I'm a very odd person. I would like to say animal control can bring in money. When departments all work together, and I know what dogs are in this town, licensed, not licensed, in the middle of the night, and have really good communications, or maybe even part like that wonderful service that Frank Lyman provided that we're going to be giving back to you. That surface thing is great if you're connected to Board of Health, the police station, the fire department, the town clerk. If you're not, it's useless. And the good thing is you got to empty a slate. Like, you can start over however you like it, because there is nothing there of substance other than Joe and I. So it's not like having to go in and rebuild everything, and there's really nothing. So I would like to you to I would like for you to recognize that animal control is, we don't want to be police, we don't want to be fire, they have an unbelievable job, but we have an intricate, very demanding role in the community, and people expect a level of service. And in times such as we're in now, it appears they were not getting the level of service. And if they only knew the lengths we've gone through to bring them. I've had over 200 cats removed from the foundry. I've had over 60 removed from the cement place that does almost looks like caskets. I've had 30-something, 2-odd times removed from Warren. Not from me, from our resources. You have any idea how costly that is? They get spayed, they get neutered, they get ear tipped, they get all their shots, they get fixed. Oh, well, I just said that. They get adopted out. This is a great not charity, this is a great mutual aid that we do not have all the time. With state funding, because of federal funding, nobody knows what tomorrow is. And I think being a town with the only animal shelter, I don't care if that building is a metal building. It is the only metal building standing in any arm's length of anywhere. We all know how much Lakeville houses animals, how many towns. And then Berkshire News just had a recent article that they went regional. I know Justin had touched on this and said that the meetings that he gets to attend, or I should too, but haven't, speak about this regional deal. I think he had mentioned 12 or 16 towns, and I said, I'm out, no way, because I will not ruin my reputation that way. I want to be right there. Minutes count. If Chief Clancy was not there on Washington Street, even though I was running out the door, and he did the proper thing of calling the police, and I had 2 bags of treats in my hands, one for him and one for me, if that owner didn't show up, one of those dogs might have been hit and killed, or both. And I want to always hold my head up high in this town and people to know I done a right job by then. And so I thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry I didn't have Joe was going to do like a PowerPoint, and I'm old-fashioned. I said, that's not me. So when he comes next time, he could probably do something like that. But I hope I gave you enough of information, and the town enough of information. And I also want to state to the town, it was said by someone that I went to school with, and she had mentioned that there was a lot of backdoor things going on. I'm sure everybody read it, and that we don't even pick up injured animals on the street. There was a lot of very negative things that were said, and that's all right, because that's what I'm here for, to correct. We have never not picked up an animal injured anywhere. Also, cats, if injured on the street, we will go and pick up. I did not make the law of no cat municipality, but yet Frank, who did it for real good reasons. Many municipalities have that same law. It's just that the folks need to understand it. But there's no backdoor anything. I believe we were called evil. And that's another reason that I wanted to be heard, because those type of things you expect online. But when you give a service like Joe and I, who have risked our life multiple times, who have stood up for the right things, I want them to know on record that we do everything in our power. And if something is not in our power, then it hurts us probably more than anyone, because I don't know anybody that goes up to Boston and gets an alligator like my partner Joe. And I'm not even going to give you a list of calls from the other towns surrounding, but everybody calls me and Joe, because apparently Joe and I always answer the call. And I would never not pick up any animal unless legally I could not. So thank you for listening to me, and I hope that that woman feels better about our service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or points?
I have a question.
I have to go
Is-
back up there.
No. Well, whatever.
Well, better, because I don't want to.
The capital, would there be a grant to build a new shelter?
I believe so, and I know Laura's. Yeah, you've looked at grants before to replace the shelter, right?
I've looked through the people that can provide grants. We have the 4-page ASPCA,
Yeah.
Dr. Bimini, and forgive me that I don't remember 6 years ago the other doctor's name, but Alan Borgel set them up to drive out here, and they put together a 4-page report. They're the same doctors and agency responsible for getting the $6 million shelter out of Quincy. Alan Borgel says, build it, they will come. I can assure you I'm not looking for a $6 million shelter, but I am looking for something that's safe. And I know our town deserves something that's safe. And I know that the powers that be can make it something that would work to bring in money. How about educational programs or even a drone? We could have been looking for, I can't even tell you how many missing dogs. You know, there are a lot of assets. I am huge on education, and with the way of the world today, I am even more so huge on the power of animals helping people. And I think there's a lot of good that could come of anything that is done in the future.
I just think we should be looking at grants because to maybe.
Well, we can't
build the
afford
shelter.
anything else. We have to do grants. I don't want the town to,
Right, that's what I'm
unless you want to
saying.
come build it.
You know, and knock down the old one and build, make it twice the size and with the proper stuff. Then we could charge me if we pick up a
I'm
dog.
wicked
we
old
charge
fashioned. So like when Mary Beth asked me what you want for a vehicle, I'm like, I'm out of it. I am very old school. I don't care what you do. I just want something that works. And I really, truly am sorry that the town hasn't brought in money, but any money that we could have brought in would have been just null and void with lawsuits. And you do what you do until you can do something different.
No, I think that.
Mary Beth, do you have anything to say?
Just as far as, I know that you made a statement about not being able to fundraise.
Yes.
Yes, and so we did check in. It's just like the elderly and disabled fund. You can't fundraise for your own department. It has to be set up as a Friends of the ACO. So that was true. As far as grants, that's something I actually even talked to Todd at our capital meeting just the other day, saying last week that we have this beautiful DPW, and you know, what can we do to, I know he's gone in and done some work recently in there.
And he's,
had it clean.
gosh, I'm going to get myself ethics fine. Yes, my hat goes off to Todd. He actually, I cried, I believe, because he went around to all the other animal control, like he learned what runs a good animal control and what they use, you know, not old chain link and then put plexiglass up against it. I mean, Todd is a great resource. Another thing that, since you brought up Todd and the capital thing, it's another reason that I wanted to jump in and talk about this, was because I thought it was going to be this year. Then I thought, oh, it's next year. But then I hear in the meetings that this needs to be done this year, this needs to be done next year, and down the road, there's this other thing that needs to be done. If people want to know what those things are, they can listen to the same capital meetings I did. And then I thought to myself, when the heck is the animal shelter going to be? And it's not feasible for Joe and I to take home animals, to drive around with animals. It's not feasible that I cannot find people because I cannot keep their animal. It's not feasible. I can't do a proper case because I cannot hold an animal. It's just it's not feasible. And I don't even like to bring any animals to my home. Sometimes they get dropped off there. I can't help that. But remember, I have cross-contamination of my own home. I have 8 dogs. I certainly can't. So by the grace of God, Joe has helped out more. But Abington doesn't have a shelter. Hanson doesn't have a shelter. Rockland doesn't have a shelter. Nowhere has a shelter. So we could really, and I'm not still, I mean, I'll be gone. I guess I wouldn't care, but I'm just going to say if you do that many, it's going to be terrible. But you could feasibly probably do 4 or 5 towns with 2 people full time. But remember that Joe and I, for the past 8.5 years, or Joe maybe 8, I'm not sure, we've been 365 days a year split between the 2 of us, and he actually works 2 hours more than me, and he gets 17 hours and I get 19, and neither one get health benefits. And I know you had suggested to Mary Beth a stipend, like Bob Hammond. Remember Bob Hammond? I helped him since I was 14 years old. He got a stipend when he got old like me, and he had to retire. But those are things that you're going to have to take into consideration for the budget, because most people probably don't run around this long for that pay with no benefits. I certainly know I see a lot of that and see a lot of discussions, oh, we got to pay what Joe Schmo pays. And Joe Schmo is paying 3-4 times more than what I get. So we know this because I've turned away Joe Schmo 4 or 5, 6 times already because I love the town. And I'm just glad to be able to still be standing here to say this to a board that hopefully has a new respect of animals, because it is very hard when you come up from cartoons and the old, what's that, the Little Rascals, and they would chase them around, and, there is a stigma to the job. And I think that we should be very proud of the job. And I think the town should be extremely proud of what Joe and I have pulled off. I almost feel like I have a magic hat or something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, somehow, Mary Beth, we have to take all of that information and cut it down into smaller groups that we can deal with, or smaller steps that we can deal with. Which is why I wanted Joe and Laura to speak to you before the meeting to cut it down on things that the board could work on step by step.
Right.
So maybe between now and either the next meeting or the meeting after that, we can come up with a list of things that we can go through one by one.
Sure.
That the board can work on. Kathy can work on grants perhaps, but so that we can take a measured approach to a mess of stuff that needs to be worked on.
Right.
Okay.
Overwhelming
Yeah.
when you listen to the in
Right,
totality.
exactly.
But
And when you work it. So I appreciate that, and that's perfect.
certainly
Okay.
we can do that. Yeah.
thank
Before the DPW opened, we did have Todd go over there, turn
Yeah.
everything back on, go through, cleaned it, and did some things. Thought that the kennels were okay for you to hold dogs. So
No,
that's the
they are
first-
not.
well, that's,
And I have the photos, but you probably don't want to see them because they're not printed out. But we have literally ceiling tiles falling down with the, I don't know how that even got there.
If we can put something together in an organized way
We
will.
for the board to
for
deal
the
with.
next meeting.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Joe was going to bring those photos, but, okay.
We can do that.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome.
Okay, old business DPW administration building.
Yes. So the DPW has now moved into the big building, and I know that they still have quite a bit of information and things still in the DPW building, but we have had interest in that building from the Whitman Food Pantry. I think that it might be a good time to decide what we want to do with that building, and then also give maybe a timeline for the DPW, a deadline in which we feel is enough time for them to either go through everything or move it over into the new building while they go through everything. So the food pantry has expressed an interest. They're here, representatives tonight from the food pantry. They actually did have somebody at your suggestion go over to the building and take a look at it. And you thought that that was,
Yes, we can make it work.
we could make that work.
There is enough support on that main floor to deal with the freezer.
Yes, well, we won't have the freezers upstairs, we'll have them downstairs.
You have it downstairs. And then I assume that you'll have to have an elevator put in.
Yes.
It's something like we have at the town hall.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing big, right.
Nothing move food up and down.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to go down and look at, I don't know how, if you pick it for them, or they go, I always thought that it wasn't big enough for the food pantry, but apparently I'm wrong. That's why I always thought it would be great for a museum, but nobody's shown any interest in doing that. That being said, food pantry said it'll work.
I think it's about time that we stepped up to the plate. Food pantry has expressed interest. They've been there. They know it will work for them. So why don't we set a deadline?
I think so. I think that June 30th for the DPW
June 30th for the DPW
to vacate.
Vacate.
And then I think we'd need to have town council draw up.
does that work, Rick?
a lease. Have town council draw up a lease for the property, similar to Corthell, so I don't know exactly what you do now with the property that you're renting or leasing from now. But we would have to, go ahead.
This all sounds
John.
excellent. I think having the food pantry there would be, would work out really well. My only concern is it'd be nice if maybe we could work with Todd to make sure that we have, obviously Mary Beth, a cohesive plan that does kind of pay attention to the needs of like the museum, the Corthell building. We're going to have to make some of those decisions. So I agree kind of taking some steps forward makes sense, but I don't like the idea of making a firm decision right now without a cohesive plan that kind of includes all of those things, really.
I think it's time to let the food pantry know that they have the DPW building. I don't see any sense in putting that off any further, if that's what I understand from what you're saying.
It's a funny kind of thing. Do we move forward with one, which then kind of gives us
Yes.
gets the ball rolling with the others, kind of, or do we hold back?
It gets the ball rolling with the others if we move forward with one.
All right.
That's only my opinion, and I'm only one person.
It's like,
But they've been asking for this. It makes sense. I think we should do it.
if I can. Sean, I understand what you're saying, but food pantry's been the only one that's shown interest in it. I mean, I would love to have a museum in the town of Whitman. We have so much stored, since John passed away, and it's all stored at the Armory now. But I'd love to have a museum, but apparently either there's no interest in the old DPW, but for them, because they never stepped forward, and I've been putting it out there, but food pantry has. So, I mean,
If I may, Dan, I think that they did express an interest a couple of years ago or, a year and a half ago with a letter that they had sent, but the follow-up has not been.
as far as what, the museum?
Right.
They were looking at the old police station.
Okay. And
That's
I
what
think
they were-
that they also may have said this building, but not like
Yeah.
the Whitman Food Pantry.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it go for the food pantry.
Yeah.
I'll go with that recommendation. I just don't want to I don't want to lose sight of the museum. I think
Right, I agree with
so
you.
Layla has been really, maybe this particular site doesn't work out, ideally for them, but, I think we should make it a priority to find a spot that is workable.
Absolutely.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion that takes?
I'll make that motion that we use the DPW administration building for the food pantry. Is that how you want to put it? Well,
Pending
pending.
Whatever lease
a lease.
agreement.
Right. We have to have that drawn up by town council.
And ask the DPW to vacate by June 30th? Is that the other half of that?
Yes, that was
Give them a
the other
deadline? Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion. There's a second.
Second.
Discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good luck.
Budget update. Mary Beth.
Okay, yes. So I have met with all department heads to review their fiscal 27 budgets. The town clerk is the only department head that has not submitted a 27 budget to date. So I just entered the information per my directive, 2.5% increase and level fund on the other items. But I've worked with each department to keep their budget increases to a minimum. And the departments really have worked with me. So I'd just like to highlight some of the major departments and some of the increases that I see as of this evening. So the select board, the overall increase was 2.4%. The accountant, 2.69. The assessors is 12.07. Why so high? It's a recertification year, and the estimated contractual increase is 35.67. So that's a big jump, causing the overall budget to be up. The treasurer collector was 3.09, technology 5.60, and Josh McNeil has done a great job of holding prices for so long, but there are expenses and applications that have gone up like everything else. So his expense line increased by 9.59%, but the overall budget is at 5.6. Facilities, 3.63. Police came in at 4.4. Fire, 4.27. Building inspector, a negative 18.02% decrease. And the major factor there is that we restored the position to a part-time position. And I have to say, I've checked in with Jim Yule. He's doing a fantastic job. He has a great admin down there now. They're caught up on everything, and so everything's moving along. He's also moving forward with his exams and testing to become a commissioner. So that's great. VOTEC, we're looking at 0.13% overall for vocational education. South Shore VOTEC's assessment was level funded. That was due to a decrease. It could end up coming in a little lower, but we're holding at a level funding. And Norfolk Aggie, the school enrollments decreased by 1 or 2, a little bit there. We have a 5% placeholder that I put in the budget for the district, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. That was about $1 million increase to the budget at 5%. It's just a placeholder. Highway and Parks came in at 4.18. Water and sewer, a 0.75% increase. The Health Department, 2.55. Council on Aging, 2.61. The Veterans Agency, Veteran Services is a negative 0.90, and that's basically because of the Veterans Parade. We're not doing that, so we reduced that line to do the event that he wants to do. This year, there were 4 towns involved: Whitman, Hanson, Rockland, and Abington. From speaking with Declan Ware, our VSO, it looks like going forward it will just be Whitman and Hanson, but the budget was reduced. Library came in at 1.74. Recreation, only because we have put the salary line in and we zeroed out everything else, and her expenses are done from the revolving fund, but she did ask for $10,000 in expense for the pool. The pool is quite old, needs some expenses, so that drove her increase to 45.54, just that $10,000. So the current deficit as it sits right now today is $1,362,379. As we've talked about before, the major budget drivers are normally the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District assessment, the Plymouth County retirement. The high school assessment with a 5% placeholder is $20,913,447 of the budget. Plymouth County retirement came in at 7.28. That's $3,831,461. We've talked about that large increase as well. And for the medical life insurance town match, we have an 11% placeholder in there right now. That line is $2,201,208. The rates will come out at the next meeting, the steering committee meeting. I expect them to set the rates, and I expect the Mayflower Municipal Health Group to put money in from their reserves to bring down the increase. So I'll make adjustments. Local receipts, some of the things we're looking at. We were hoping that maybe we could increase our local receipts estimates because we did get in our first commitment of excise for 2026. It was $58,000 more than last year, but the accountant didn't feel comfortable increasing the estimate at this time. And then trash revenue too. He'll be checking that February and March, and if he can increase estimates and Jen Argenti, our accountant, can increase estimates going forward, we're looking at that. Also, investment income, that has come way down. We had money for investment income other than all of our, deposit accounts and so forth, and our investment stabilization, capital stabilization. We had the DPW money as we did that, went through that project. Of course, that's now been depleted, so the revenues come down. We are taking over the borrowing for the Whitman Middle School, and the funds will come into the town, and then we will transfer the funds over to the district as requisitions are approved by the building committee. And then we'll have 5 days once we receive that and the OPM signs off on that month's requisitions to transfer money. So I do see an opportunity that we will be earning some interest on the money that we're borrowing. Right now, we're looking at approximately, there's a $30 million bond anticipation note, which is coming due on March 18th. It looks like we're probably going to borrow $70 million, and I'll have a meeting the end of this week. 30 will pay off the ban, and $40 million will be to bring the project forward to continue with that. So I expect that our investment income will be going up. New growth, it's estimated at $200,000. And I am going to have the interim principal assessor review that initial projection as building permits seem to be increasing. You can see, the development downtown on South Ave, and I believe Steve Egan has one on Harvard Street. So there are things coming up that I think this year I'm hopeful that the new growth will be much higher than it was last year. And then some items we just want to keep in the forefront as we move forward with the budget discussions. We do have the South Shore Vote Tech, which is a debt exclusion that we do have to put on the election in May. So that got passed by all the towns to do the project, and now we have to put the debt exclusion forward. Also, this deficit that we have right now, possible override. I did attend the MMA conference, and I spoke with the John Guilfoyle Public Relations firm, which I believe both police and fire use. Hanson uses them as well for their override information, and they set up all the information on the website. We may want to consider having them do that to really get great data out there on an override. And I mentioned that the Whitman Middle School borrowing is coming due soon. February 17th, the FinCom would like to have a joint meeting with the Select Board, and at 6 p.m. on February 17th. So we had set that date as our meeting date. If we could maybe set the time at 6 o'clock for the FinCom portion. And then we did want to just touch on a budget formula discussion and a contingency budget discussion quickly.
Yeah.
So Sean, I know you wanted to talk about the formula.
Yeah, definitely. With FinCom in mind, listening to those meetings, they've made something very clear that they were uncomfortable over the last couple of years, really, with how late they're getting the finalized budget and the lack of time they have to truly deliberate, make decisions, recommendations, and work with us. And I think they're accurate in their criticism. There's been a number of variables that have kind of pushed us to be last minute, and I think the reason why I put this on the agenda tonight for us to discuss it maybe comes to a little bit of a consensus and then really come to a decision with FinCom, hopefully at that next meeting, is so that we can do just that. We talk about the different budget formulas that we've looked at to see how we could fairly distribute funds between us and the school district, and it's been a major source of tension for us over the last 5 years at least. More than that, but certainly over the last 5 years. I think what we should do, we talked about each of the four at the budget meeting that we had. I think we should have a brief discussion now, and I'm going to make a recommendation to formally use Justin's or a slightly altered form of Justin's formula, because I think, one, I do think it's the most fair. It's easy to calculate, and it's explicit how it's calculated, and it's one that we can share with FinCom, and it allows us to move forward with the budget right away. If we don't choose, right now we're using the 5%. We're simply using 5% for the school and then a lesser amount for town departments, knowing that we have this Plymouth County retirement and healthcare that are high. The reason why I think that is outdated is because if you look at 5% for the school right now, it's about $1 million. Well, the total amount of revenue that we have the total amount of new revenue that we have over last year for all town departments, including the school, is about $700,000. So you can see 5% is obviously not proportionate. I mean, that's $300,000 more in revenue that we have for all town departments, including the school. So it obviously isn't responsive to the nature of the changing nature of revenue and how we have to adapt. So I think the 5% should be set aside. It's good for a placeholder just for us to get our initial calculations. But as we step into this next phase of the budget process, I think the reason why, I'll give a quick argument, and you can
Go for it.
The reason why I personally like Justin's formula is because basically it takes the school budget and the town budget less the school assessment and treats them as equals. And then says if we have a certain amount of revenue, then we're gonna 1% for the school would be 1% to the town departments. And I think the reason why I think that makes sense is because we have all the obvious budgetary difficulties. It's the healthcare, it's the pension, it's the utilities, it's the transportation costs. You know, we have those difficulties, and they're on the town side and they're on the school side. And I think that formula treats them appropriately. What it would practically mean today would be if we about 60% of the revenue that we take in would go to the school and 40% would go to the town. That's what it means. So if we were taking in a little bit more revenue, about 60% would go to the school and about 40% would go to the town. So instead of the $1 million placeholder that we have in there right now, we would say 60% of the current revenue, about 60% of the $700,000, about $700,000 that we currently have in revenue would go to the school. So that would be a little over 400,000, right? So a little over 400,000 instead of $1 million. That means our deficit just went from 1.3 million. We would subtract about 600,000. So it would be about a 700,000 deficit. I think that's fair because it still means that of the new revenue that we have, the school is still getting 60% of it, and we're getting a slightly lesser amount. So they're still getting a fair share, obviously, and we're getting the lesser amount. But the totality of the deficit has gone down significantly, you know. If over time our revenue increases a bit, then obviously those numbers would also proportionally increase. And then the formula also takes into account the deficit. They do a decent job.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So yeah, I came up with this formula last year. We were looking at reducing after the override.
You guys are together on it.
Failed. So he grabbed my spreadsheet from last year to kind of take the negative signs to positive and say this is a revenue formula. But it made a lot of sense if we had to shave $2 million off of the budget last year. You do if that's 2.5% from all town departments and 2.5% from the school department, they're both being reduced at a level amount. But the assessment reduction to the town is different than the school budget reduction. So this tried to treat actual budgets the same rather than we look at the assessment at 5%. That's a 2.5% increase within their budget because of state aid and all the other things that we try to figure out. I think taking it down to proportional budget increases or decreases is more fair, and that also accounts for the couple of early COVID years when we had an influx of federal money and had some more money to spend. We grew a couple of town departments and held the schools at 5%, which wasn't fair to them, right? We were adding staff and they weren't. So this, in the good times and the bad times, it works both ways. This matches a little more closely what a lot of non-regional school systems do, where the town has a little bit more control over the number that gets printed on the warrant. For us, the school committee is going to vote, assess a number, and we vote it up or down at town meeting. But at least this gives us a place to start when that process begins. I do think taking what Mary Beth said and what Sean just walked through, if we've got, what, 400,000 to the schools and 300,000 to the town departments, we're well over that on the town department side right now.
Sure. Would
Yeah.
be about a $700,000
Yeah, deficit just on.
Deficit would be 777,659.
Yeah.
So it would be 411,158 to the schools and 272,938 to the town.
And that would mean that we've still got a ways to go on. Wait, why would that be? Go through the deficit to the schools again. Because if we're reducing them to a proportional amount, there wouldn't be a deficit to the schools.
700 is just for,
Our overall budget deficit
Yeah,
would be 777,000 after we applied.
that formula.
We reduced their 995,000 down.
Yes, but that 700,000 is entirely on the town side of the ledger at that point.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's all
Okay.
us. Oh, that's all us.
Okay.
100%.
So it is a more equitable way to do it. It's definitely going to be difficult on our end to cut our budget, and I imagine that next week when the school certifies it or when the superintendent presents a budget, they won't vote it yet. It's probably going to be north of a $700,000 or $400,000 increase to us. So there's a lot of work for everyone to do between now and then. But no, I do think this is a good, at least first pass formula. I'd be curious to see what the FinCom says about it.
Yeah. So if we have a little bit of a consensus, like we want to go in this direction, or your feedback otherwise, and then if we can have the formal discussion with FinCom and, Ryan Trussell is going to be invited in the school leadership, so they can have some input as well. But I think if we could make a decision about the formula, that would help us then move forward and calculate it. If we don't make a decision about the formula, then we start the process of them versus us, and we go back and forth, and it takes us right to town meeting, and I think getting people on the same page.
And a lot of it too was the time, when we get the numbers from the district,
Right.
that's well into March, and then we're trying to get all these alternate scenarios done to reduce the budget.
Right.
So yes, if we know the formula, and then the other item that we want to touch on is the contingency budget.
Right. That is the obvious next step. If we know the formula, then we can start to accurately calculate any contingency budget. Last year, for a number of reasons, we chose not to have a contingency budget. We thought that was the best route, but for some reasons that came down to the very end, with the override failing, that made it very difficult for the actual calculation. So FinCom didn't have the actual calculation. So I think the same thing. We should make a recommendation so that next week when we have the formal, not next week, next meeting with FinCom, we can formally decide that yes, we will have a contingency budget. If we have the formula and we have the contingency budget, then that I think fits in line with what their priority is, getting the budget earlier. If we can't decide on a formula, and if we're not sure about whether or not to have a contingency, and then there's obvious reasons why not having a contingency can be advantageous. So I don't want to take away from that. That might be the decision that's made, but it makes it more difficult for them to have the full numbers if we don't have a contingency budget. If we vote to support a contingency budget, then they'll have both scenarios in front of them, so they can give us recommendations on whether they support those, or they've listened to a lot of department heads, so they have a thorough knowledge about the budget. So to me, that makes sense.
And I would just like to say, if you remember 2 years ago, we did the contingency budget. We had all the columns, and it was a lot of data for people to. So last year we did one budget, and then we had to go back and rework things. I think that we could still do the contingency budget, and depending on how the first article goes there to put it forth, we could have just two separate documents. So we could still do a contingency budget, but just keep it streamlined, it clearly marked. We're either going to use this one or this one, depending on what happens.
Just keep in mind, there are some people who feel very strongly that the town does not have the ability to do this. We don't have the ability to change the school's assessment.
Correct.
So whatever we do, it would be as a recommendation, whether we support their their budget as they put forth or not. So we want to get on the same page with the school and act with their feedback and obviously have FinCom involved. But ultimately, there'll be a number of people who are reminding us that we don't control the school's budget.
We do have to put the number in
Yes.
that they certify to us, that they give to us. We
Yeah.
absolutely have to, and that I don't think, we've ever questioned about not putting it on.
Right. As far as the Article 2, I call it. Yeah, the school budget, say they put in 1.4 million, right? But we have 980,000, right? As what we're offering. If the finance committee goes with that, town meeting votes that 900 and something. That's the number they vote. Right? Not the school budget. That's the number they vote. And it depends on what Hanson does. If Hanson also does the same way and votes a lower number than the school's budget, then it's up to the schools to lower their budget to meet both Whitman and Hanson's numbers.
Town meeting votes on the finance committee's recommendation.
Yes.
You are correct, but we must still have their number.
Right, we can still have their number.
They
But-
do have the ability to, it doesn't mean that they just have to fall in line with that number.
No.
They could still push for, some of the further scenarios, it's ultimate, the big town meeting or pushing it to like having the state come in. So it's tricky and we want to work together on this for sure. I'm hoping this is just more of a proactive, let's get ahead of this, let's not wait till the end, fall in the FinCom's lead a little bit. I do have one other issue. As part of the regional agreement, you obviously could probably explain this better than I, but just in simple terms, they haven't been able to come to terms over the way that we calculate transportation.
Correct.
I think that working with our legal, it seems like there is potential that we are in the right if we simply assess non-mandated transportation as part of their assessment. So if it was just simply rolled into their assessment as opposed to as a subline in the budget, it's advantageous for us to do that for a number of reasons. And there are some reasons why we don't want to do that. So I'd like to talk about this formally with FinCom as well, so that they're on the, they're in the loop and we can have, we're going to get more details from legal about this, but I think it makes sense for us to move forward with getting more information and potentially rolling that into the formal budget as opposed to a subline.
And actually, not only that, I think that's what the regional agreement currently tells them to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems like we're in the right with the regional agreement by doing it that way.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, so you're saying roll the non-mandated busing in with the mandated busing as one number?
So transportation would just be rolled into their assessment number,
Okay.
Yeah.
You have,
just like it is with South Shore Votek, right?
right,
That's-
but we own our own buses. And everything, I mean, all of this is mandated. But anyways, if you have non-mandated busing and you have mandated pupils on it, right, isn't that a cost factor?
That's how they run it now.
Huh?
Right? They don't run separate buses for mandated and non.
No, I know that,
Yeah.
but it used to be separate line items.
Yeah.
So we can control.
So the way the region, and this is something we've wanted to clean up in the regional agreement, probably, if we return to negotiating the regional agreement, this is probably going to still be a sticking point between Whitman and Hanson. But the school committee currently, and I haven't looked at it in a while, so I may screw up here, but the school committee currently has the option to provide mandated or non-mandated busing. They instead choose to split the baby, provide it, and assess the towns. But what it says is either they can provide it or they can put it forward to town meeting and town meeting can choose whether or not to provide it.
Right.
That doesn't work operationally because they're already contracted with the buses.
Right. That's
So they've decided to just try to thread the needle and assess more money over to the town with more non-mandated transportation.
This is fairly aggressive.
Yeah.
it is, but they also got to remember the buses need to be filled.
Well,
I'm hearing that there's buses with a lot of empty seats.
the reason why it's monetarily in our best interest to do this is because right now we're being assessed at about 80% for non-mandated. something like that, right?
Yeah, we have probably 80% of the non-mandated transportation. So
If
they
it was to be moved into the general budget, it would go with like the 60-40 split.
and it's probably, I think Kathy Otina did this calculation. It's like a 30 grand difference. I mean, it's not a huge thing in the scheme of a $66 million budget, but it's meaningful for Hanson to amend another formula that charges them more
Right.
than they have been paying.
Exactly. So put it on your radar and we'll talk about it with FinCom.
Yeah.
Sounds like animal control's easier to fix.
Is that it for the budget update?
That is.
At Town Administrator's report?
Actually, no, not
No?
really tonight. We have a lot
Okay.
of information, so no.
Then we have to go into executive session. We have a couple of them to do.
Mr. Chairman?
We have to go into 2 executive sessions pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Exception 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, the chair so declares. That's the Whitman Police Association, Mass Cop Local 494. And an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Exception 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body, and that has to deal with the Corthell building. There was an executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, 21A, Exception 4, but we do not need that, so we're not doing that tonight.
So
Is
moved.
there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
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 Okay, we're in executive session. We will come out only to adjourn. And we cleaned out the room.